thoughts, opinions, and general overall shades thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yes. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Friday, March 14th. Today is, you ready for this, Jesse? It's National Write Down Your Story Day.
I did exactly that in my notes.
Look at that. I wrote
down my story.
Look at that. Look at that. It's also National Children's Craft Day. I feel like that should be, I feel like that should be closer to Christmas.
No. It's springtime, man. You got these kids need things to do. It's still snowy in the Rockies, dude.
Hobby Lobby's going to be busy then, apparently.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's also National Learn About Butterflies Day.
Butterflies are beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It's also National Pie Day.
Oh, I love that.
Not pie like apple pie, but like, P-I.
But you know that people use it to buy pie.
I mean, I could definitely see, what's that restaurant that sells all the pies?
I forget.
Oh man, I forget what it's called.
Drawing a blank on the national change. Hey, but you can visit your local diner and get a slice of pie all across America.
Oh, that's cute.
Support local business.
That's cute. That's cute, Jesse.
That's right.
That's cute. That's cute. Let's see. It's also National Potato Chip Day.
Oh, boo, they're full of seed oils.
Oh boy. Oh yes, you're right. You're right, Steve. It's Marie Callender's. That's what I was thinking of. You are so right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good look. Yeah, that's where get some pie from Marie Callender's. If I owned a Marie Callender's, I would definitely use National Pie Day as a way to sell more pies.
You'll get better pie at a local diner though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, these are symmetrical pies. They're special for today.
They're very round.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're the roundest pies. Yes. 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 And let's see. Rico is going to be a little late joining us today. He just flew in and is on his way to the house. And then Dr. Mark also let me know that he was going to be a little bit late today. So nonetheless, but thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And we are going to kick this thing off with Mr. Jesse Barney. He is the founder of Barney Design Co. That's right. He helps brands elevate to the highest plateaus as if they were out in Aspen skiing for the wintertime. That's right. It is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Jesse Barney.
All right. Thank you. Well, my story is a bit of reefer madness out of Wisconsin this morning by Andrew Mertens from Fox 11 News. Study: 85% of cannabis users drive the same day. Dun, dun, dun. causing concern for Wisconsin authorities. New information is shedding light on how many people get behind the wheel of a vehicle shortly after consuming cannabis, better known as marijuana. AAA found in a survey that 84.8% of people who use cannabis drive the same day that they consume cannabis. 53% said they consumed it an hour or less before driving. We know that cannabis is impairing, maybe in a different way than alcohol, and so that's a really alarming statistic, said Nick Jarmus, Director of Public Affairs for AAA. It's also alarming law enforcement. The dangerous part is if you consume marijuana an hour or less before you drive, you may consume that marijuana and feel fine. Get in your car and you're a half an hour down the road and the effects start hitting you. That's so dramatic. Well, then what? Then you're at risk of causing a crash, someone crashing into you, said Colonel Dylan Davis, Community Resource Officer for the Grand Chute Police Department. More than 19% of respondents said they believe their driving is much better after consuming cannabis. I'm one of those. Wisconsin has a zero tolerance policy when it comes to driving under the influence of substances like marijuana. State law says it's illegal to operate a motor vehicle with any detectable amount of a restricted, controlled substance like cannabis in the blood. Numerous addiction center resources say marijuana can be detected in your blood for typically 12 hours after the last time the substance was ingested. There's a lot of things that marijuana is going to affect. It's going to affect their reaction time. It's going to impair their judgment of distance. It's going to decrease their coordination, said Lawrence Nicodem, a clinical addictions counselor of more than 40 years. Nicodem says depending on the test, cannabis can remain elsewhere, like your hair, for much longer periods of time, sometimes months. The overall message from law enforcement and others is not to drive while high. Well, I know the audience is all saying, hey, we all use cannabis and drive well within 12 hours and we never have a problem. And we know that experienced cannabis users actually are really great at pretty much doing anything while high. So I'm going to toss this back to my fellow correspondents. What they have to say about this piece of reefer madness out of Wisconsin.
I mean, isn't Wisconsin like historically a really drunken state? So like, what shouldn't they worry about getting their DUI count down? Feel like they are.
I see Dr. T shaking his head.
Well, yeah, I agree that they're not looking at real world evidence. They're assuming that the cannabis use is causing problems, but not actually seeing if it is causing problems. Maybe they should look at different statistics.
They're just adding to the hysteria and the propaganda, Dr. T. I mean, and I'll say this, for anyone that's like a first time user, I think that they should definitely, use a significant amount of caution and whatnot. But like for the seasonal smoker, I mean, come on, stop it. Like we used to smoke and drive in the car and have no problems. And then we used to like be able to drive a car, operate a cell phone and roll a blunt all at the same time with no problems. And, and still fasten our safety belts when the police pulled up behind us.
Well, I have seatbelt on already, but I could definitely roll a blunt going 90 down the 95. So that's a fucking skill set that's going to be lost to the
But can you do it in the backseat of a convertible on the freeway with the top down? That's the skill, Jenny Beth.
Yeah, because it's just blowing your hair, Jason. Come on.
No, it's not. No, stop it. Stop it. You got to break the weed down too.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I could say anecdotally, I've ridden my motorcycle all over California and all over LA and lane splitting like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Blasting all kinds of spliffs and dabs. I will roll a spliff and smoke the spliff while riding my motorcycle. And I've never been in a wreck, never had a problem. I'm one of the best riders around. I can say that confidently. So I'm fly in the face of this story for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I mean, despite the amazing abilities of Jesse, because I could not I wouldn't condone, it does delay your reaction time. When you test a group of people, it delays the reaction time. So yeah, if you're a new user, be careful. If you're an old user, be careful. Just continue being as careful as you have been, because I think this news is great news. 84% of the people are driving with it, and we're not seeing an increase in accidents. In fact, in states where cannabis has been accessible, I believe we're seeing a decrease in accidents.
Now that's a great spin right there.
Slowed reaction time is causing real-world benefit.
That's a great spin there.
The lines.
Yes, yeah. that is great perspective right there, Dr. Tallyrand. That is awesome. I am all about that life. Now I have a question.
John, by the way, the worst driver, rolling blunts or being high. I am not the person who wants to be behind the wheel.
Well, in all fairness, Dr. T, you're a doctor. You should be driven around. You should be, you know what I'm saying? You should be in the Maha motorcade.
I'll wait for the motorcade. Just as long as there's no snipers.
Dr. T, I think you're highlighting something that's also a further reading between the lines, which is I have always said, and I don't know that there's any proof behind this, but I feel like cannabis is an amplifier, whatever is going on. So if you're really good at something and you use cannabis regularly to do that thing, you get even better. It's like an enhancement or an amplifier. And for instance, the opposite can be true if you're already lazy and you smoke a lot of weed, you're going to get more lazy. If you're a very productive person and you smoke a lot of weed, you're probably going to be even more productive. That's my hypothesis anyways.
That's a great perspective. Yeah. I do even think that it sensitizes some of your nerves. So it's interesting.
Interesting. Very, very, very interesting, you guys. When I have a question, Dr. T, because in the study, Jesse, you said that these drivers are saying that they waited less than 12 hours. What do you think is like the right amount of time for someone that just consumed cannabis? And I would imagine too that it would need to be varied on what they actually took. Like if they smoked something versus they took an edible or something like that. Like what do you think is the appropriate time? Like I think if someone that took edibles, you should wait till tomorrow or 12 hours. I think that makes perfect sense because a lot of people get tired and groggy and like lose a lot of muscle control with that. But I don't see that really with people that consume flower. And what do you think would be the appropriate time?
My personal opinion is it varies from person to person. So the only answer to that is know thyself. You have to be incredibly self-aware.
Yeah, but doctors have to put these generalizations out there, and so that's why I want to know what Dr. T thinks on this.
I don't think you can, and I think Dr. T would agree with me. You have to know yourself, right?
Yeah, always. On average, when you're smoking 2 to 3 hours, when you're ingesting 6 to 8 hours are when the peak effects of the flower. But Jesse's right. Know yourself. People have different metabolisms, and so the most important thing is go by how you react to it. If you're still incapacitated the next day, then don't drive. But in general, 6 to 8 hours after ingesting.
Fair enough. 6 to 8 hours after ingesting for edibles, you're saying, and 3 to 4 hours for people that are beginner smokers.
Definitely for beginners. If you're not experienced, you shouldn't be doing this at all. Because you don't know yourself. You need to be experienced. You need to know yourself.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
Jesse, I would say this even for someone who's like gets on stage, especially for musicians, and I'm that person. I've had times when I was a young smoker and I smoked weed and got on stage and it was a disaster. And it took a long time of experience to figure out how to do that well, because it is a different thing. You can't just jump up and do it the first time.
If you're a natural, though, you know what I'm saying? What if you're a savant? Come on, Jesse.
That's why you have to know yourself. I mean, you're going to have to experiment. You're going to have to try things. It's not something you can just always, like the doctor said, yes, for the average person, the average bell curve, you want to think in those terms of those numbers. but in order to really know yourself, you're just going to have to try it out.
Yeah, throw yourself into the fire.
Steve Blessingham
That's right.
says, I remember taking bong hits while driving my 67 Bug. Great
That's
memories.
cool.
Yes.
I
You know,
remember having an e-rig plugged into, or an e-nail plugged into the car lighter. That was probably a terrible idea. You should not keep a dab rig in your fucking cup holder and drive up and down interstates.
that's why Puffco and Cardis
email.
came out, so you didn't have to do all that extraness now.
Yeah, no, I feel you, but we kind of predated a little of that.
Yeah, they
stuff,
just
so
fit in the
it's,
cup holder
yeah.
now.
We
You know what I
can't
mean?
let safety.
Remember-
You
Yeah,
can't
but
get,
probably not the greatest idea to take a giant.
we can't let safety get in the way of innovation, though, right?
Exactly.
We're talking like we don't smoke carts, which we don't because we're all experts.
Yeah.
But most people have a cartridge in there. They're just ripping that thing all the time, everywhere they go.
Yeah, but you know,
Only
like,
the Catalyst Live rosin for the people one.
oh, the Cat 4.
yeah.
The Cat 4.
Come on, man. You're more likely to die from the heavy metals than actually get by getting slammed by another hunk of heavy metal.
Well,
right?
also
True
too,
that.
we all know that vape carts are basically the Chinese food way of getting high, where like you get high for a second and then, you know what I'm saying, 30 seconds later you got to get high again.
I think you're going to the wrong Chinese food restaurants, Jason.
Stop it. Chinese food does not fill you up, Rico. You get filled up by the time the plates are done served, and then by the time you leave the restaurant, you're like, man, I'm hungry again.
Like I said, you're probably going to the wrong Chinese food restaurants.
Never. I only go to the best Chinese food in the world.
Jason,
What, Jenny? What can I help you with?
I miss Genghis Cohen.
Oh yes, Genghis Cohen. Yes, the best
it
Jewish
close?
Chinese food in the planet.
What?
What?
Yeah, Genghis Cohen. Genghis Cohen.
I need to hear this
Too
story.
far. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
hear
it's
this
just far.
story.
Yeah, Genghis Cohen. Shout out to the family that really used to run Genghis Cohen. Dennis, the old chef, he died a number of years ago, and then a bunch of Hollywood kids that I used to party with took over the restaurant and still operate
Ran
and
into the
whatnot.
ground.
No.
Fucking delicious.
No way. It was
So
the best. Let me put it to you, bro. It was basically better than Mr. Chow's, but a third of the price.
That is those are some very, very acute allegations.
It's not an allegation. It's 100% fact. And you can ask anybody in Hollywood all about it. They will tell you this 100% true.
It's so good.
So it's pretty good.
So fucking
Yeah,
good.
straight up.
Many times.
Ask anybody in Hollywood. I'm gonna ask Ray Ray.
You
I'm gonna
ask
Ray Ray. on
You
the
ask
corner.
Ray Ray. You ask Day Day all day, every day, and they're gonna tell you the same. And we're on that. We're gonna go to
Sunset Zombie.
yeah. We're gonna roll. We're gonna roll into our first commercial, and we're gonna be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
All right. Oh, and we are back. And he is fresh off a plane back in the magical world of La La Land, where he didn't get to sleep at night because that's right, he flew in coach and had 3 little terrible tots kicking his seats the whole way home. That's right. Here on jet lag and sleep lag is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
Ain't no lag in this jet, baby.
Uh-huh.
So-
Let you tell it.
Anti-cannabis America's lawmakers would become during Trump's second term. We're now 2 months into the 119th Congress, and the Bipartisan Congressional Cannabis Caucus has yet to meet or make progress on marijuana reform. It seems as though cannabis has taken a backseat to psychedelics as the separate psychedelics advancing therapies, or PATH, caucus is actively pushing its own agenda. In an interview with Marijuana Moment's Kyle Yeager, Cannabis Caucus co-chair Representative Dave Joyce, Republican out of Ohio, cited legislative gridlock and broader government funding debates as obstacles to cannabis reform. He expressed frustration over past inaction on bipartisan marijuana bills, particularly the latest version of Safe Banking bill, which has remained stalled in the Senate. Here's what he had to say. Let's face it. What are we going to do to put a table at the moment? He said, adding that we might run our heads into the wall if cannabis reform supporters try to take on the last session, pointing out that then Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer had the thing for 2 years on his fucking desk. These are his words, not mine. Dave Joyce said this. Chuck Schumer had the thing on for 2 years on his fucking desk, and he did not do anything. That appears to be a reference to cannabis banking bill that moved through a Senate committee in 2023, but was never brought to the floor. Thanks, Chuck Schumer. Right, Jason?
Yep, and he backpedaled. He took a page out of your book. Mm-hmm.
At least he didn't flip-flop. That's your book.
Oh, he did. He definitely did that.
Anyways, I think it's safe to say at this point, we'd be more likely to get a public Kendrick Lamar apology to Drake over his Not Like Us lyrics before safe banking ever becomes law of the land. Meanwhile, PATH Caucus, led by Representatives Lou Correa, Democrat of California, and Jack Berman, Republican in Michigan, has already convened and sees growing momentum for psychedelics policy. Correa, also a member of the Cannabis Caucus, highlighted the distinct legislative challenges of cannabis and psychedelics, while Bergman emphasized a goal of responsible policymaking. If I may presuppose, I think we've got the momentum with respect to psychedelics, Correa told Yeager. The momentum is there. Bergman simply said that the Psychedelics Caucus is, quote, trying to do the right thing for the right reason. We have good people all together that will sit down and work things out. So the whole Cannabis Caucus thing was trying to do the wrong thing for the wrong reasons with bad people behind it because weed bad, shrooms good. Got it. See what you're doing there, Jack. You ain't slick. But yeah, while marijuana legislation remains stagnant, with some Republicans even advancing bills that would further restrict the cannabis industry, such as maintaining tax deduction bans for cannabis businesses, psychedelics policy has gained traction at state and federal levels, especially regarding alternative therapies for veterans. So look, I'm just going to keep things a buck like I always do and have when it comes to cannabis versus psychedelics. Psychedelics does not have the same war on drug baggages that cannabis does. It does not have proof of general ills done to communities of color tied to it. And therefore, especially in this point in time, with this particular administration in power, I see all the progress over the last 10 years of cannabis legislation falling under the same woke, DEI, CRM, you name the acronym, that they cannot and will not define category. Cannabis has that we owe the black and brown people some shit for this problem, and that shrooms, LSD, MDMA do not have. And I do not see any of those debts being settled anytime over the next 4 years. Is what it is. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. Come on with it. Come on with it, Finsters.
Well. First of all. So I do want to say that this legislation that they are referring to is my work wife in DC's bill, Amy. So congratulations, Amy, on this bill. It is moving forward. They are getting some progress. Congressman Jack Bergman is a good buddy of mine. He is a fantastic member of Congress, and so is Lou Correa, a good friend of mine as well, and fantastic member of Congress. So bravo to both of these guys for advancing this agenda. That's what I have to say, Rico.
With the PATH agenda, so you're just like shitting on cannabis.
No, I'm not shitting on it. No, I'm not. I'm just saying that these members of Congress do a fantastic job. I endorse both of them. I mean, safe banking. Hold on. I endorse both of them. Okay, both the right and the left ones. Okay, and the reality is that safe banking got so politicized by your boy Cory Booker said he was going to die on the Hill. He was going to die on that sword before it got passed because there weren't. It was just a bill for white men to get bank accounts. It was totally ridiculous.
Jason, the stories about the whole Cannabis Caucus, they haven't met.
They've got a lot of other stuff going on right now in DC, Rico. A whole lot going on.
No shit. So I'm saying, like, the story was
what's the problem?
It was just about the Cannabis Caucus. Dave Joyce being upset, and him.
I think he has every right to be upset. Dave Joyce has every right to be upset. Every right to be. That's another buddy of mine. Shout out to Dave Joyce out there from Ohio.
Okay, so do you have a response to the story?
That is my response to the story, Rico.
Okay, anybody else want to respond to the actual story?
just because you don't like the response.
There was no reaction to the story.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Shout out to my work wife.
Well, that's her bill. That's her bill. I'm glad that we covered it and mentioned it. I'm excited about that.
Pissed about the Cannabis Caucus not even a meeting at all.
You know,
in this version of Congress. I just wanted a reaction to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I even saw a tweet from a lobbyist out in DC that was saying, you know, it amazes me that of how Chuck Schumer basically grandstanded on this whole thing, and we couldn't even get any amendments for safe banking in because of their unwillingness to work with anybody. And so, like, this doesn't surprise me, Rico. It doesn't surprise me at all. It's the do nothing Democrats for a reason.
Okay, there's a response to the story.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Go ahead, Jenny Beth, please. You're on.
Yeah, all right.
Mm-hmm. That's it?
I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath.
Is it dead?
And I've said it every time we have a story like this. We're not a fucking priority.
No,
it's going to be a priority. If you expect to wake up in the morning and all of a sudden be important and all of a sudden matter, and this is the forefront of their fucking minds, please stay asleep, because that's not how this is working. So sorry, not sorry, but I mean, yeah, I don't have much to say that I haven't already said.
Yeah. Do you think it'll go? I don't think cannabis. I think cannabis legislation is just dead under the Trump administration.
Well, that's part of the problem that I have with pushing psychedelics forward so fast, right? It's like we just frog humped cannabis. Like, wait, we weren't done here yet, and we're not going to get done here yet because now we've skipped on to the next thing. It's like an ADD child trying to get their homework done.
Yep.
So why do you guys think they're paying more attention to psychedelics than cannabis? I mean, it's not the psychoactive properties, clearly. Why is it that cannabis becomes always the neglected child in this whole?
Oh, I have a guess.
The war on drugs.
No.
It's the war on drugs, and you have black and brown people saying that, yo, you fucked up our communities. There's proof that you fucked up our communities, and there's no way that they're going to constitutionally.
That's not the thing.
Let me finish, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that they're going to constitutionally push forward something supporting these black and brown communities that have been affected.
That's not the reason why. The reason why, Dr. T.
In your opinion, Jason.
Yeah, it's 100% my opinion. Just like that was your opinion, 100%. I have a totally different opinion, totally different outlook on this. My thought around this, Dr. T, is because psychedelics have a much more easier viability to be single compounds to turn into pharmaceutical drugs. And so big pharma would be behind more of the psychedelic push because it's more able to become actual pill or capsule type of a thing that pharmaceutical companies can make money off of, as opposed to where cannabis is a full spectrum, all around encompassing all of these different compounds to make one thing happen.
Yeah, I was going to say that exact thing, really close to it, that these molecules like LSD and psilocybin require a lab, and cannabis can be grown at home.
Exactly.
And is
that's why.
to a panacea. And so cannabis as a threat to big pharma being able to be grown at home by everyone, where not everyone can make LSD at home, and not everyone can make MDMA at home. Not everyone can make ketamine at home. That's just not possible. So
and not to mention,
easier to control.
Before you respond to that, can I get a comment from Dr. Mark on that? I see Dr. Mark chopping at the bit to get on this one. We're talking about molecules and shit. We get a blurb, Professor.
Yeah, I think Jesse's got a good point. You know, I mean, you could extract cannabis in your home, probably extract mushrooms, but yeah, you're not going to make these synthetic versions. You have to be pretty sophisticated to be able to make LSD at home.
Mm-hmm. Could you make LSD at home, Dr. Mark?
Have you made an LSD at home, allegedly?
No. We're not going to ask have. We're just ask can.
Wow.
If it was over 20 years ago, there was statute of limitations and shit.
Presentation, I will plead the fifth.
Amazing.
Owsley was basically making it at home, wasn't he? In the 60s?
Say that again?
Owsley was basically making it at home.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, they were making it home. But, you know, clandestine labs, you know, I mean, one thing, I choose not to do pharmaceutical synthesis in my house, but, you know, other people make a different choice there. But, yeah, I mean, I'm totally for psychedelics and everything, but yeah, I usually get my samples from people that have already previously street tested these materials.
Mm-hmm.
For scientific purposes only, Dr. Mark, obviously, right?
That's right.
I think there's another factor to this that we're not talking about, and that's that all politicians on both sides of the aisle already have their fingers in hemp. And so they're going to be very quiet on cannabis because any disruption there is going to disrupt their hemp business.
Well, I also think that historically we haven't done the best job at lobbying, right? We as an industry for a long time had a hard time getting behind the fact that we needed to pay lobbyists and we needed to pay good lobbyists. Mm-hmm. And we've, maybe paid people who weren't the best.
That's still the same status quo.
Yeah. So, well, I'm trying not to poo-poo on anybody because I don't have time to read angry emails today. I'm fucking busy, so hold them off till Monday after 9 a.m., please. But, I mean, we have a bunch of people who are cannabis lobbyists. What have you done? What have you done? I'm so sick of people saying, well, I've tried to push this, and I've talked to this person, and they've done jack shit. So, like, who cares if it's a nothing burger, Jason?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Jenny Beth? They smoked the world's largest blunt on the White House lawn. That's what
those are not lobbyists. Those are activists. There's a big difference between the two. And shout out to the C word who threw in the super chat who says, grow mushrooms at home and have a great weekend.
Sick. I'm going to go get a Diet Coke.
Chemicals. Speaking of chemicals.
Speaking of all this stuff, we are going to roll right in to Dr. Gene Tallyrand. He's the founder of the CESC and of Medican, where you can get your doctor's recommendation just online and you will be fine. That's right. It is the man here to give you a dose of your own self-worth. That's right. Dr. Gene Tallyrand.
Ooh, I like that one, Jason.
Like that?
Thank you, Jason. Happy Friday, everyone. Great discussion. So this story is from Cannabis Business Times. New Mexico bill to provide health insurance for medical cannabis advances by Tony Lange. Health insurance providers could be forced to cover medical cannabis costs in New Mexico under legislation that is advancing through the committee process. New Mexico House Bill HB 527, sponsored by Representative Cristina Parajon, Democrat, would amend the state's Healthcare Purchasing Act, the Public Assistance Act, and the state's insurance code to require medical cannabis to be covered by public and private insurers, including individual and group health plans, Medicaid, and state coverage offered to government employees, educators, and retirees. House lawmakers voted 5-2 to advance the legislation out of the Health and Human Services Committee. The bill now needs approval from the Appropriations and Finance Committee. Under the legislation, state health insurance providers will be required to cover an adequate, quote unquote, 3-month supply of medical cannabis, an amount determined by the state's Department of Health. For qualified medical cannabis patients from dispensaries, so the cannabis comes from dispensaries approved by the health insurance company. New Mexico has 30 qualifying conditions for medical cannabis. The state peaked at 135,000 registered patients in March of 2022, but the number has dwindled to 79,000 this year. Insurance coverage would likely revive New Mexico's medical cannabis registrants if HB 527 becomes law. It's estimated that HB 527 would cost the state $40 million per year. However, New Mexico's licensed dispensaries sold more than $144 million per year. There would be no federal Medicaid match if cannabis remains Schedule I. In addition, the New Mexico Public School Insurance Authority notes that cannabis is not a medication and therefore lacks a national drug code. It cannot be processed through standard pharmacy claim systems, states the report. Insurers would need to develop alternative payment mechanisms and create a separate reimbursement system for medical cannabis, which would delay processing and increase administrative overhead. The idea of health insurers paying for medical cannabis was floated in 2022 by Ultra Health, New Mexico's largest cannabis operator. They sent a letter to the state's prominent health insurers, including Presbyterian Health, Blue Cross, and Blue Shield, amongst others, asking them to affirm that they'd be making payments for medical cannabis and requesting how they intended to pay. The fact that health insurers should and will pay for medical cannabis is not revolutionary, wrote Ultra Health's chief legal officer, Christina Caffrey. It is the next logical step. It is a small step, not a giant step. HB 527 could make its way through the House this legislative session, but it is a tight window through the Senate as the legislature adjourns in just 1 week. So I love what they're doing here in New Mexico. Medical cannabis fights back is what I call this. As states allow adult use, medical patients have repeatedly suffered, and not coincidentally, so has the cannabis industry. Getting health insurance to cover cannabis could be what saves the industry, but it would bring about change in how dispensaries currently do business. And I think that makes some dispensary owners terrified. What do you think? Could health insurance save the cannabis industry? Would it change how your dispensary operates? This is Dr. Jean Tallyrand with High at 9 News.
Oh man, this is good news. I think we touched on this earlier in the week, but this is getting closer and closer to some real things right here, Dr. T.
Oh
no.
Yeah, I was loving it. But maybe this is what you're worried about with Schedule III, making dispensaries more like pharmacies?
No, I'm not necessarily worried about that. What I'm worried about, Dr. T, is that under Schedule 3, every single product on the shelf would be deemed illicit product, and then therefore no one would have access to any of those things because the FDA regulates everything by the molecule, and they already have drug preclusion on THC and CBD, so therefore every single product on the shelf would be an adulterated product and not available for sale.
You're saying that you wouldn't be able to sell flour?
Yeah, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. You wouldn't be able to sell the tinctures or anything because none of those have gone through a FDA clearing process to be actually approved product. The only thing you'd be able to buy is Epidiolex and Marinol.
Yeah,
right.
Until they approve it.
That's my problem.
Pharmaceutical
and there's not one of these cannabis companies that is going to have the money to pay to even get like 2 SKUs through a whole FDA screening process.
Well, Jason,
there's an FDA, an easy FDA screening process for nutraceuticals.
I'm all for turning cannabis and classifying it as a nutraceutical, but Schedule 3 is not a classification for nutraceuticals.
Right.
When Charlotte's Web people petitioned FDA to have it listed as a nutritional supplement, i.e. nutraceutical, FDA said no.
Yeah.
So that would have been the easy out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That would have been the best way. You would have been able to have flour on the shelves.
Mm-hmm. Jason's absolutely right. But the other thing is that, say they do make an exception for flour, are you going to buy boof flour made by an MSO at Walgreens?
Not a chance.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Exactly.
No.
exactly.
No one's going to do that. That's gonna fail miserably.
Yeah, we wouldn't, but they got the money to put the marketing out there, and I guarantee you, like a ton of these new booties would, not knowing the difference.
I think grandmas would. That's about it. I think anybody younger than us would not go for that.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't even know if a lot of grandmas would, because they lived in the 60s and 70s, bro. And so, you know what I'm saying?
No, but I would say grandmas would.
What they already were smoking.
Yeah,
I would say grandmas would, because if they're getting it from the pharmacy, they might as well pick it up with the rest of their meds.
They're not going to view it like that.
Trust. It gives it that trust factor that grandmas want.
I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that. I know a lot of older people that are with it, still with that life.
Anybody else?
Potatoes of the story, and we're talking about, you know, making these state-sponsored health plans pay for medicinal cannabis. I think that's great. I did a story a few weeks ago on that out of Kentucky, I believe it was, or somewhere.
Alabama.
I mean, it's exciting. I want to see what they think, though, a reasonable supply is.
3 months, 90 days.
And I think that you also have to be very careful and allow doctors to still be doctors, and for them to actually say, hey, this is what my patient needs, as opposed to, you know, these are the options, these are the stores you can buy from. Those stores are only going to have certain things. If they don't have what you need, then it's not really helpful, right? So that's like, you know, we tried 18 of these generic drugs. None of these worked. Now I need that pre-approval for the brand drug. So I don't know. We'll see how this works.
We need the tacklers.
You know, Jenny Beth.
The tacklers and their marketing and their sales prowess behind that good government weed.
Jenny Beth actually brings up a really good point, because, you know, Dr. T, I mean, you remember the whole time when everybody was getting recommendations written for 99 plants and 10 pounds of weed and whatnot. And so what's to stop any of these doctors from saying, hey, you know what, we're just going to write out prescriptions for people for 100 pounds of flour, boom, 100 pounds of flour, 100 pounds of flour, and just create a whole little paper mill where people are just coming and buying those things?
Well, the law states the Department of Public Health would come up with the standards for which, you know.
But that's going to vary by county, wouldn't it? That would vary by county, because the Public Department of Public Health is a county-based organization. You know, it's not a statewide thing.
It could be that they. Well, I mean, I don't know. I didn't read the actual bill. I read the article, so I don't know the details of it. But they're definitely putting that decision in the hands of the Public Health Department.
Interesting. So they're probably going to have this patchwork system where, like, if you live in this county, you can get up to this amount, and you can get up to this amount if you're in this county. And oh man, it's going to be a whole cluster. But I am all for patients being able to have insurance pay for their meds. I'm 100% for that every which way until yesterday.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing from you guys is it could be the downfall of quality in the industry, unless there's some provisions for the small farmer to be contributing to the supply chain.
Well, Dr. T, legalization was already the downfall of quality. I think we've already witnessed that.
Well, it's the start of it.
Again, that argument that you're making there, Dr. T, is the reason why psychedelics is going faster than weed. There's too much nuance. Like, how many craft LSD makers do you know are out there that are fight for their rights?
Dr. Mark's craft LSD maker.
Don't get me in trouble.
I think part of this,
you can't say that.
There's part of this conversation where there's the future. So I have the fortune of having 6 teenagers all at once, and all of their friends, when they consume cannabis or they're going to get cannabis, they don't think about it the way that we do. They get their carts from their plugs on Snapchat and Telegram, and that's it. So they don't even, the whole concept of going to a store to get something is irrelevant. Their plug pulls up right in front of their house. They walk out in front of their house, pay, grab their cart, and walk back in.
And you just watch this whole shit go down?
It's more like their friends do it. I can't stop it. You know, it's like, it's the way it is. You're not going to control your kids from doing that. They're going to go to their friend's house and they're going to do it. They're going to find a place to do it and a time to do it. So knowing that that's the case, that's the future of the way that the next generation is going to buy these things. They really look at it like DoorDash.
Good thing America just might not be around for my daughter to be a teenager. You know? I kid. Jenny Beth over there about to blow up. Head about to explode.
She's gonna explode. She's gonna explode. You gonna explode, Jenny Beth?
No, I'm just fine.
All right, fair enough. And on that, we're gonna roll into. You have anything you want to say on this, Dr. Mark? You've been pretty quiet on this one. This is a big deal.
No, I mean it's more of the same shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, we've covered this topic a few times, and I'm not sure exactly what the point of this is. Like you said, patchwork regulation doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's much ado about nothing, if you ask me.
All right. But you do support insurance paying for cannabis medicine for patients,
Well,
right?
I support God, this is a can of fucking worms. You really want to go here?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
The insurance industry is basically sucking out money of our healthcare system, pay, executives, and all that money so there's healthcare providers like Dr. T, and there's people like me who are patients who need healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance sits right in between and sucks a lot of money out. And I sprained my ankle a couple of weeks ago. I think I mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
The bill for that X-ray came in. Patient's portion of an X-ray. This is just 2 shots, Dr. T. $736.
Mm-hmm.
Holy mackerel! And that's after my insurance company's already paid like a couple thousand. So it's like, I mean, I'm lucky because I have means, but what about people who just, live from paycheck to paycheck? They wouldn't get that X-ray. So, I mean, we live in a medical dictatorship that's dictated by the almighty dollar. For-profit healthcare is going to fail. We should have healthcare as a right throughout this country. Protect its citizens. There's no better thing to protect than our health.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not wanting to turn this discussion political, but there's a lot of things going on that maybe are bigger fish to fry than this.
Fair enough. And we're always happy to turn any conversation political, Dr. Mark, just so you know, you're
Jason,
always open to do that. I just want you to
know how much I love you. I love you, brother.
We love you too. We love you too, Dr. Mark.
I never want to come to, right versus left and red versus blue blows on this show because I love you so much.
It's all good.
I would just like to say that I'm always down for a good fish fry, Dr. Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as long as it's the band fish, right, Jesse?
Ooh,
Right,
getting fried while listening to fish. Ooh, bars.
Mm-hmm.
That's when Jason doesn't want to do it. He just starts saying,
We're going to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
I'm Cole Preston, and today I'm at Blue Island Beer Company for the premiere of my mini documentary on legalization policy in Illinois. I've been following cannabis policy since colorful Colorado legalized it all the way back in the day, and when my home state of Illinois decided to legalize it, I just became enamored. I wondered, what would it actually look like? If you'd like to see how Illinois fell short in achieving meaningful reform in their cannabis policy, you can watch my mini-doc now at colememo.com/mini-doc.
And we are back, you guys. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door. And then next door to that, they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Oh, and we are back, you guys.
Yes, we are, Jason. And up next is the highly recognized New England-based organic chemistry expert, always bringing a little functional Friday heat to the Bunsen burner, if you will. Get your blue pads, get your blue notebooks ready for another study sesh with the professor representing the great New England region of North America, Dr. Mark Scialdone.
Hey, Rico, how are you?
What's happening, Dr.
How's
Mark?
everyone doing?
Doing great, my man. How you doing?
Hope everyone's having a great Friday. It is Pie Day.
Yes.
Everyone knows what Pie Day is?
Yes, it's not from Marie Callender's.
I'm still trying to get my piece.
Mm-hmm.
At
So here's the
3.14.
number, and we start reciting 3.141295 sigma blah 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 blah. So what is pi? Anybody? What is pi?
It's that sign. It's that sign next to P Day. That's it.
It is the base. Is the basis for the God particle.
Describes a root of the relationship from the circle.
I think you guys are overthinking this. What is pi?
It's a round dish that's served for dessert.
3.14.
159.
It's the ratio of a circumference of a circle to the diameter, right? So that ratio is always conserved at 3.14. That's what pi is. I guess it was some Greek proto-mathematician who figured this out way back when.
Was that Pythagoras? Was that Pythagoras?
I think so. It might be, right? The guy with the triangle and everything.
I believe so.
He was a cute.
Okay. So my story today comes from Canna Reporter, and it's a juicy one that I have a personal connection to. So it's entitled, this was published 2 days ago, it's entitled HHC, which is hexahydrocannabinol, classified as a Schedule II drug by the Commission on Narcotic Drugs and Drug Enforcement. This comes from Antonio Costa, and it reads, as its session held today in Vienna, so that was 2 days ago, the United Nations Commission on Psychotropic Substances, CND, approved by qualified majority the recommendation to include hexahydrocannabinol, or HHC, in Schedule II of the 1971 Convention on Psychotropic Substances. The approval of the WHO recommendation was expected by the industry and was met with abstention of only the United States of America. HHC is currently marketed in several countries as a substitute for THC, and the UN decision represents an international ban on recreational and non-medicinal use. During its 68th session of the Commission of Narcotic Drugs and Commission on Narcotic Drugs, the item that caused the most debate was approved, the classification of hexahydrocannabinol as a prohibited substance. So just remember what hexahydrocannabinol looks like. It's this molecule right here, which we get from the hydrogenation of either delta 8 or delta 9. I'm showing the hydrogenation of delta 9 here. And remember that the cannabinoid that I invented is HHCA, which is this stuff right here, right? This little white powder right there. So anyway, that's my personal connection to it. So the session did not receive any further comments or discussion from the delegates, who opened up the session and immediately took to the vote. According to Article 17, Paragraph 2 of the 1971 Convention, a two-thirds majority that is at least 36 votes in favor, was required for approval of the recommendation. After the abstention of the United States of America, the following countries casted a favorable vote: Algeria, Argentina, Armenia, Australia, Austria, Bangladesh, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Chile, China, Colombia, Uruguay, Dominican Republic, Finland, France, Ghana, Guatemala, Hungary, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Kenya, Lithuania, Malta, Mexico, Morocco, Netherlands, Nigeria, Poland, Portugal, Qatar, South Korea, the Russian Federation. Interesting, Russian Federation. I didn't know they were a federation. I thought they were just Russia, but okay. Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Switzerland, Thailand, Trinidad and Tobago, Tunisia, United Kingdom, United Republic of Tanzania, Uruguay, and Zimbabwe. Very, very interesting list of countries there. I wonder why Uruguay was mentioned twice. With the number of affirmative votes exceeding the required threshold, the committee decided to adopt the World Health Organization's recommendation to include HHC as a Schedule II of the convention. The inclusion of HHC in Schedule II will mean that all 184 signatory countries of the convention will be obliged to restrict the use of this substance exclusively to scientific and medicinal purposes or medical purposes in accordance with the provisions of Schedule II, thus being the subject to implementation of prescription, licensing regimes for its production and distribution, and all of the above integration of HHC into their drug control strategy. HHC is currently marketed as a recreational product, meaning this decision effectively represents an international ban on recreational non-medicinal use. Well, very interesting that they did this. A lot of people are covering this, including our friend Rachel Gordon. I was just going to touch on something that Rachel said. So there's been 4 mentions about this in the press since this came out on Wednesday. And what Rachel says here is that HHC is a naturally occurring minor cannabinoid. That is categorically false, Rachel, and categorically false to everybody who says that HHC naturally occurs. It does not naturally occur. There is no scientific data in the peer-reviewed literature to say that HHC occurs in cannabis. Zero, zilch, none. The only 2 papers that claim that it was reported show no experimental evidence in those papers to say that they identified HHC. They just say it in a passing statement. Well, those statements are very, very important because I think, again, most of these hemp processors have to stick to this is a naturally occurring cannabinoid. It's not, folks. It does not occur naturally. CBN, let's talk about CBN for a second. CBN is a degradation product of THC, right? So every once in a while, THC will decarboxylate, or THCA, which the plant does make, will decarboxylate to make delta-9 THC. It does not make delta-8. Delta-8 also does not occur naturally in cannabis. Let me repeat that. Delta-8 THC does not naturally occur in cannabis. And all those hemp rags that say that it does are full of shit, okay? I'm telling you the scientific fact. Delta-8 does not occur in cannabis. But the people who sell Delta-8 need to stick to that, oh yeah, it occurs in cannabis. It occurs in cannabis because that way they can say that they're just naturally enriching it somehow. Delta-8 products today, without exception, are all made by the chemical conversion of CBD. We know that that reaction generates a reaction mixture of non-natural isomers that are not made by the plant. HHC is similar to that in that it's not made by the plant. It has to be made in a hydrogenation reaction. Okay. So them banning this is really interesting because HHC was one of those sort of products that sort of took off in the wake of the Farm Bill. You know, think about it. The Farm Bill legalized low THC cannabis, so people started growing high CBD varieties. And I believe that, again, the Farm Bill, the Congress was snookered into thinking that this was just industrial hemp for rope and seeds and paper. I don't think they even contemplated high CBD varieties being grown under the term industrial hemp, because taking a CBD product to market breaks federal law. It breaks the FD&C Act, which prohibits the use of an active ingredient of FDA-approved drugs in food, feed, or cosmetics. That's the reason why the entire CBD industry is really a nascent industry, and one of the reasons why the folks at Charlotte's Web petitioned the FDA to have it termed as a nutritional supplement, because a lot of people do use CBD. And you're right, Jason, Epidiolex is the only thing that's approved that has CBD in it. However, the folks at GW Pharmaceuticals knew that this was going to work because of the work that children did in the late 70s and early 80s in Brazil, where they showed that it was effective against difficult to treat epilepsies, including Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. Those difficult to treat epilepsies, they already knew that CBD was effective. However, GW does not have a composition of matter patent on CBD. So because they don't have a composition of matter patent on CBD, they can't snuff out or have the DEA snuff out the CBD industry because they don't own the composition. It's a public composition that was first described by Professor Roger Adams in the late 30s and early 40s. And because it's a public composition, you won't find many pharmaceutical companies that don't have a patented active ingredient to take it through the expensive journey of clinical trials, right? You only take a drug through clinical trials if the pharmaceutical company owns that compound, right? Because then on the other side of those clinical trials, and they could sell their billion-dollar pharmaceutical. Well, that's not what CBD is, right? CBD was a known composition. And even though you could probably get relief from a CBD tincture, and I think we've talked to Dr. T about this, whether he would prescribe Epidiolex or just have a CBD tincture be used to control epilepsy. With HHC, it's a completely different story because, again, HHC was the first synthetic cannabinoid. It was originally described by Professor Roger Adams in 1940, and they didn't realize that the plant didn't make THC, it makes THCA. And so then I came along in 2015 realizing that the plant makes THCA, and when you hydrogenate THCA, you make HHCA, this little white powder in the vial right there. We patented HHCA. We own the molecule, right? We own that molecule. Doesn't matter how you make it or where it comes from. Our patent and the holding of that patent basically owns that molecule. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this HHC ban, because HHC, they estimate earning about $2 billion last year. That's a lot of money for one of these alternative cannabinoids. Remember that the hemp cannabinoid market, they estimate somewhere around $60 billion, and the combined cannabis markets, I think, is somewhere around $30 million. So the addressable market, the larger addressable market that hemp has, and the lack of regulations basically just makes it a much more addressable, much larger market, buying under the 2018 hemp banner. So I guess what I mean to say here is that, yeah, we don't know what the long-term use of these hydrogenated cannabinoids are going to do in the body. So until we have those kinds of safety studies done and established, and I said this many times on High at 9 News, the only reason why this market for recreational synthetics exists is because of cannabis prohibition itself. if cannabis was removed from the schedule and people had access to high quality cannabis and cannabis products, there wouldn't be a need for these recreational synthetics. So it's interesting to see the UN take this course of action. It's more interesting to see that the United States has abstained from voting when our allies, the Russian Federation, voted against it, as well as most of the civilized world. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. That's what I have to say here from the halls of St. Michael's College here in Colchester, Vermont. Be interested in what my other esteemed panelists have to say about the banning of HHC by the UN.
Oh man, interesting, Dr. Mark. One thing real quick is that it's Rochelle Gordon, not Rachel Gordon. Just one quick note. Yes, much love, Rochelle. Jenny Beth, what do you have to say on this? I see you throwing your hands up, and you know what I'm saying, all in a flurry.
You know what I mean? I got all excited. Dr. Mark.
Yes.
Dr. Mark, I'm so glad we were talking about the Epidiolex patent and the attempt for that, because like that is our fight we got in many, many years ago. And you're right, we were both freaking right, because they also shit the bed on the formulary patent, because UCAN came in, which is what the industry needs to do to protect itself, by the way, and introduced a formulary patent through Tony Vazura. Brilliant fucking guy, amazing to work with. We had a blast. And our patent encompassed theirs. Now, business things happen, and there was some other stupid shit that happened, but like that was actually a really important thing, because it was a patenting the aqueous suspension of cannabinoids, and it was addressing more than CBD, and it was also addressing THC. So it was a really cool patent. It was a really cool day to watch somebody have to call in from a huge pharmaceutical company and be like, "You just ate our lunch." So I think it's. I don't know. We'll see. But Jason,
yes.
What do you think, Mr. Gummies?
I mean, I think it's super interesting. You know what I mean? And personally, I'm not too worried about the UN, because I feel like the UN is getting ready to dissolve anyway. So whatever their opinions are on anything doesn't really matter that much much to me. Yeah, it's a big nothing burger. But I do think that it is super interesting news that they are saying this personally.
Well, just looking at some of the comments in the chat, okay, so Delta-8 does not naturally occur in cannabis. Okay, Hashanista, it does not. It is a degradation product similar to CBN. So CBN, there is no pathway to make CBN in cannabis. However, aged cannabis can oxidize THC to CBN. The reason why you could sometime observe Delta-8 in cannabis is it's a degradation product, because it's thermodynamically favored. Delta-9 is less favorable than Delta-8. So if given the opportunity, Delta-8 will be formed from Delta-9, but that takes human intervention. Plant by itself does not make Delta-8, right? I'm going to say that again.
Yeah, it needs us humans.
Does not make Delta-8. It's a degradation product.
It needs us humans to help degrade it even more, right, Dr. Mark?
That's right.
So
That's
let's
right.
clarify CBN, because CBN, you can leave it on the counter, right? It will, and your plant can turn to CBN from the oxygen in the air.
Well,
but you can't get the
light in air.
Yeah. So okay. So in going from THC to CBN, that's called an oxidation. In going from CBN back to THC, that's called a reduction. Oxidations are favored because we live in an oxygenated environment, namely the atmosphere, right? And so what happens is, in order to convert THC into CBN, you have to lose 2 moles of hydrogen, H2. And what are those lost to? Well, it's lost to the fact that air is containing oxygen, and you could reduce oxygen in air to water. And those of you who've ever used a heat gun to move distillate around, like cannabis distillate's very sticky and very viscous.
Yep.
But you could use a heat gun, which is a glorified hair dryer, right?
Yep.
Gun. And every once in a while, if you heat up the THC distillate too much, what do you see? You see a little bit of white smoke.
Yeah.
Guess what that white smoke is?
It'll start to bubble
that
too.
White smoke is water vapor. That water vapor is coming from the reaction of your THC molecule, which has got 2 moles of hydrogen, basically deliver to the oxygen in air. It reduces oxygen, which is O2, 1/2 O2 plus 1 H2 goes to H2O. So what you're observing there is a little bit of steam, and you're usually using that heat gun, so you're heating it up beyond the boiling point of water. But when you see that little bit of wisp of white steam come out when you're moving distillate around, you're making CBN. So that does happen naturally, Dr. T. You can basically do that naturally. It can be catalyzed by light, it can be catalyzed by heat, but you don't go the other way. You don't go from THC down to HHC. HHC is not a natural product. And one of the reasons why I know this is because one of the last correspondents I had with the late Professor Meshulam, who knows a little bit more than the rest of the world about cannabinoid chemistry.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, Professor Meshulam said that HHC does not occur naturally. And so I feel very confident when I make that statement because Professor Meshulam also made that statement. And he's most likely correct.
And neither does Delta 8 occur naturally. What's interesting here is all of the isomers are Schedule 1. HHC is, except I think Delta 9 has been brought to Schedule 2 by the International. Delta 9 maybe. But HHC is now also Schedule 2. So it's sort of a rescheduling on the international levels. It's gotten less strict. It's moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2.
Right. Schedule 2 is the same one that ketamine's on, isn't it right, Dr. T? Ketamine and GHB and things like that. Ecstasy, I think.
Ketamine might even be lower than Schedule, might even be a higher number than Schedule 2. Ketamine might be Schedule 3.
Okay.
Yeah. That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
I mean, this is crazy. You can't argue with science.
Yep, that's right. You can't argue with science. And on that, we are going to roll into our final commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's
I'm PIMP certified.
Oh boy, and on that, we're back, Rico. We are back.
Yes, we are. You want me rock this one?
Yeah, no, you gotta introduce. Yeah, you gotta introduce Jenny, and then I'm gonna do my story last.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I just enjoy it. Listen, I enjoy it. I appreciate that I get to spend my mornings talking to people who know more than the average bear, and I always find it funny when other people argue with factual fucking science. So it just makes my head explode. By the way, if you guys are in the chat, rosin press is heat, which can create a conversion.
This is why I love the fact that you can say that as a Republican. But I'm not gonna go deeper than that. I got jokes. I'm back in the house.
All right, give me a good intro today, Rico, because the last one was a little flat. You know what I mean?
We got the founder of Kind Cannabis Consulting and Justice Served 501c3 here to break us off a little Friday heat that might be a little bit melanated, but highly opinionated. Faux show. Jenny, Beth, Dills, busting in doors and kicking in faces with the story of the day. What you got for us, Jenny?
Kick them bitches right off the hinges, you know what I mean? And this is my winter shade, so I'll be more melanated as the weather warms up. You know, But
like it.
okay, cool. So this one is actually super in my wheelhouse. I'm very excited about it because it means that some of you guys need to call me. The California Department of Cannabis Control is taking major steps to simplify regulations and strengthen consumer protections in the state's cannabis industry. In an announcement today, the DCC introduced a new cannabis cultivation regulatory package designed to streamline administration, eliminate redundant regulations, and enhance public health and safety. DCC Director Nicole Elliott emphasized the importance of adapting regulations as the industry grows, stating California's cannabis industry has evolved significantly since the early days of legalization, and our regulatory framework must evolve accordingly. By eliminating duplicative requirements and enhancing sanitation standards, we're reinforcing consumer safety and fostering a more efficient regulatory system. Here are some of the key changes in the new package. Simplifying pesticide requirements. Cultivators will no longer be required to contact their local county agricultural commissioner regarding pesticide use. However, compliance with state and local laws remain mandatory, ensuring that oversight stays strong. Streamlining energy and air quality regulations. Redundant provisions related to energy efficiency and air quality reporting have been repealed. This eliminates confusion and ensures cultivators follow a single unified set of rules under the California Air Resources Board and local agencies. Simplified pest management record keeping. The package removes duplicative pest management record keeping requirements that overlapped with local regulations. This change reduces unnecessary paperwork while maintaining robust oversight. Enhanced sanitation standards. New requirements have been introduced for licensees handling unpackaged cannabis or non-manufactured cannabis products. These include keeping animals out of indoor work areas, you wooks, regularly sanitizing tools and surfaces, and ensuring proper hand washing stations or gloves are used during the handling. These regulatory reforms are part of the DCC's broader effort to refine California's cannabis framework, making it clearer, more consistent, and less burdensome for businesses. By simplifying operations, the DCC aims to uphold the integrity of the legal cannabis market while reducing unnecessary red tape. It's a move that reflects the state's commitment to both supporting business growth and ensuring consumer safety. So some of these changes will be confusing for folks. Hopefully, you guys will call me. If not, call somebody else, have an attorney look over it, have a compliance consultant look over it, get it explained to you, because whether or not you understand it, you are held to all of these requirements. So I'll throw this back to you guys, but I do love the little piece where you can't put your bare dick beaters on cannabis anymore because you shouldn't be putting your hands on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm offended.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. What do you have to say about this, Dr. T? You're on mute. You're on mute, buddy. There we go.
I was listening for sampling. I didn't hear anything on sampling. I'm waiting for that because that is really my biggest issue with regulations. That's how to sample the products for testing.
That's like the story of everybody in cannabis is they're waiting for samples.
Well, as far as sampling, like as far as testing, it took forever for them to come out with any kind of standardization regulations for testing lab. It's because they truly don't understand it, right? And so it's really confusing. I mean, look, we've had so much confusion over COAs just this morning. I think that that's going to be the last to be addressed. They really only made these changes for cultivation licenses right now, which is cool. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be quite some time before we see them touch testing lab regulations.
Well, I think the hemp industry samples in the field and the regulated cannabis industry samples at the distributor. And so, that's really where I'd like the discussion to shift to what's important.
Yeah, that's correct.
You think the samples...
The hemp industry is required to do pre-harvest testing. So they test at various stages prior to harvest to certify that that product does not contain more than the regulated amount of THC. Otherwise, it has to be destroyed as opposed to harvested.
Interesting. So Dr. T, you think that regulated cannabis should be tested in the similar way as hemp as far as in these stages?
I think that it should. I didn't say that. I mean, for hemp, you can test 30 days before harvest. And, most people who grow know that a lot is happening in those 30 days. So, hemp has some issues, but I think in-field testing is a good idea in terms of getting potency requirements, potency or actual numbers for what the field represents or what the batch represents, rather than reaching into a bag. I think it's too random, reaching into a bag.
Interesting. What do you think about this, Dr. Mark? You do a lot of tests.
Yeah, well, I've been involved in this for longer than I really want to know. The issue becomes like in some states, they actually, so they're not sampling at distributors, Dr. T, they're actually sampling at the producers where the flower is grown. And in some states, like Maryland, they have a witness from the state cannabis commission go into the grow along with the person from the testing lab. So the person from the testing lab has to send an individual to the grow. And there's a state regulator there to watch it and look at exactly what you're mentioning, Dr. T, which is how representative is the sample that they're getting. Are they only grabbing like the buds on the top of the thing? Or are they basically looking at a homogeneous sample that would include like fan leaves or things that are going to be less potent down on the bottom of the canopy. Here in Vermont, they just put it back on the grower. The grower just has to get results from a testing lab, from a state licensed testing lab, but they're allowed to send in whatever samples they want. So you know what happens here in Vermont? They're sending the top colas, right, which are going to test really super high, a lot higher than the bulk of that biomass that COA is going to represent. Well, just because our state is geographically challenged, and certainly for the medical cannabis, or the Cannabis Commission to send somebody to all of these, facilities is just going to be, over onerous and very expensive, because you got to send people all over hill and dale. Every time someone wants a test result, you have to have a representative from the commission there to make sure that they're grabbing a valid sample. They just don't do that. So growers are basically choosing their most potent things to get COAs on. Now they have a COA that says, 25, 30% THC. And now that's going to represent a batch that probably is a great deal less than that. So that's just potency. You could imagine the same kind of cherry picking could happen with microbial stuff. You could pick stuff from a plant that has no microbial infection, but then throw a bunch of, foul weed in on that batch if that's part of the same strain or whatever. It's supposed to be all under camera so the state can go back and look, but the state doesn't have an army of people to basically police this. So yeah, all kinds of problems when it comes to potency. And the biggest thing is that you have to report potency back on a dried weight basis. Dry weight basis. Think about that. There's no cannabis for sale today that's completely dried. So in order for them to understand what that denominator is going to be, they have to basically understand what the water content is in cannabis so they can correct for that dry weight basis, right? Well, because each individual lab have different procedures for determining that and correcting for the water weight, that makes it very problematic to compare Lab A's results to Labs B results, because most of what's in that plant is water. And when you wholesale all that water out of the plant, guess what? You lose other weight. You lose terpenes. You could also, depending on how fast you do that drying process, you could start decarboxylating that. All of that is going to lose mass, so that denominator is coming smaller and smaller. So what's going to end up happening is, guess what? Your THC numbers go up, right? Because the THC isn't volatilized. What's volatilized is, along with the water, is the terpenes. So it's problematic, the fact that we have to report potency on a dry weight basis when none of the flower that's sold in dispensaries are dry. They have moisture with them. Well, so therein lies a statistically problematic issue of why you can't do comparisons between labs. That's why there's lab shopping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why you shouldn't regulate based on potency either, because of the variability of the data.
We should totally eliminate the whole THC percentage on all the labels on everything except for like edibles and whatnot, and manufactured concentrated products. That's totally different. But as far as like flour, pre-rolls, all that stuff, the THC label should be totally eliminated. And Brian Dombrowski in the chat, he says Texas SB 4242, which we covered yesterday in Stone Story, calls for testing of final product on the hemp side, and that's the one we need in Texas, he says.
Yeah.
Right. But
there needs to be final testing. There needs to be testing right before it goes to a consumer for several reasons. And a lot of them are, you got people in your facility scratching their ass and packaging products. Like, we want to make sure that, microbials and things like that are safe. And guys, as far as potency, I think that's a large portion of the reason why you can only, COA only lasts for a year, right? Because you're going to need to know how much this is degraded. If there have been, there's now CBN in this product because it's not been shelf stable and it's been sitting there oxidizing for a year. But I think that California is petrified to address any lab testing regulations, and I don't blame them. Because we have doctors that don't fully agree on things, right? Yeah. So, and I don't know, no offense to anybody at the DCC, please still be nice to me when I call you for clients, but I don't think that anybody there is really, Meshulam level knowledge of cannabis and its
of course they're not
testing requirements.
Of course they're not. You see what they get paid?
Do you like how nicely I said that, though? That was actually that was an America's sweetheart, dumbed down version.
Dr. Mark, did you have one closing remark you want to say on this before I get into my story?
I just wanted to say before we throw potency testing under the bus,
it's terrible.
Remember the distributor. He's looking to buy the most valuable product.
That's R&D test, Dr. Mark. That's not a final thing that goes on a label. That stuff can all be done through distros and through R&D tests. That I'm not saying to eliminate that component. I'm saying eliminate it for the end consumer, because all it does is a disservice to the consumer when they're trying to make a purchase, because all they're looking is for this artificial THC percentage when they're going to buy, and it's just very, very cumbersome and leads the consumer in the wrong direction of what they're actually looking to relieve themselves from.
Okay.
Right. I totally agree.
Also, when you guys also just Party 151 because it's 151. You have to put these things on alcohol products. You have to say how many horsepower a car have. And Ford got in trouble in the early 2000s for downplaying for insurance purposes.
THC labeling is stupid.
So it's not just a cannabis specific situation, Jason.
It's stupid.
Our solution is to label them as type 1, type 2, or type 3. Leave it at that, and then you don't have to put the.
I'm with that, Dr. T. I'm not mad at that. 1, 2, or 3. What type are you?
I ain't got no type.
Well, all right. You want to give me an intro, Rico, or you want me to just go into the story?
Oh yeah, it closes out today is none other than the High 9 News head honcho, the Sultan of Spin himself, the only man who looks himself in the mirror and sees nothing looking back except truth. Jason Beck, what do you have for us?
Oh boy.
Close out today.
Oh yes, good morning, you guys. Happy Friday, you guys. We made it through the full week, you guys. Look at that. Look at that, man. And the doctors, you're going to love this story. And I do want to shout out Miss Elise McRoberts, the Hashinista, who actually sent me this story yesterday. I'm so excited to cover this, and I can't wait to hear what the doctors have to say about this. Because at California's company, Injectable Cannabis, you guys thought Cannabumps was something, but this injectable cannabis could cause serious harm. The FDA says, you guys, that's right, all you mainliners, THCers. Oh man, the Food and Drug Administration warned a California cannabis company on Monday that its injectable hemp CBD could be posing serious harm to public health, telling the company that its product is violating federal law. Pico IV sells a purified version of CBD, a non-intoxicating compound produced by cannabis that is designated to be injected into the bloodstream through an intravenous infusion. The Sacramento company has testimonials on its website that say the CBD IV therapy can help treat chronic pain, Crohn's disease, and arthritis. The FDA, however, warned that Pico IV in a Monday letter that it is breaking the law by marketing CBD as a dietary supplement, even though it is explicitly designed to not be ingested and instead injected. The agency also said the product is especially concerning because injectable drugs can pose risks of serious harm to users. And the FDA said injecting anything directly into a person's bloodstream can lead to serious and life-threatening conditions, you guys. Pico IV CEO Joe Young said in an emailed statement to SF Gate that public safety is our top priority and that the company's product undergoes a process designed to ensure sterility and safety. We are confident in the safety profile of our product and are working diligently to provide the FDA with the necessary information to resolve their concerns, Young's statement said. Pico IV's website states that it offers the world's first injectable CBD product. The product is produced from American-grown hemp plants, a legal category for some cannabis plants, and is completely sterile and safe for intravenous use. It is not available for regular retail sale, and only physicians, providers, and IV therapy clinics can purchase vials of the injectable CBD, according to the company's website. Toxicologists have long been concerned about cannabis products because they do not face rigorous federal safety standards, and cannabis products are also at a higher risk of being contaminated with heavy metals and pesticides. And Pico IV says on its website that all of its products are tested by third-party labs for purity. Well, doesn't that just make you feel good inside? And man, get your tourniquets ready, you guys, because you guys thought Cannabumps was a thing, and now we got this CBD IV to just mainline straight to the vein, and I can't wait to hear what you guys got to say about this.
I got to run, but the FDA would say that this was that ingesting CBD is also not legal. So it's the fact that it's injectable is not really the issue. The fact that it's CBD is really the issue.
But I mean, you could just go to like a health clinic and say, hey, you know what? I want this IV of CBD injected in me, Dr. T. Look at that. That was a whole one rhymer.
Yeah, I mean, I think therapeutically it would be great, for chronic pain. It would bypass the whole bioavailability problem with CBD and get it to levels that are more therapeutic, because usually you need higher doses. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in terms of helping people, it would be great, but the FDA is the barrier to that, mm-hmm. As usual.
Mm-hmm. I thought this is, everybody freaked out about Cannabumps, and now they got the CBD IV, and just what do you guys say, Jenny?
Great idea, though. Shout out to the company.
You think it's a great idea, really?
Help a lot of people.
You don't think they're like they're like mainlining heavy metals when they're doing this? Because we know, you know what I'm saying, hemp-derived CBD, it'll carry a lot of those different types of toxins and whatnot.
You can purify it. It's not difficult to purify.
You trust any of these labs to tell you the truth about that?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Well, if they're purified, yeah, I think they're wanting to make a good product that's pure. I mean, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're trying to sell dirty product, especially if it's such a regulated method like injection.
I see how you got that word in there.
Regulated
meth.
Dispensary, right? This is only available in a clinic.
Well, how it sounds to me like you could go to like somewhere like Earth Bar that has an IV station, and you could get that there too. That's how it sounds to me. And like I imagine, like if you go to the spa in Vegas and they offer IV injections or whatnot, you could get it at a place like that too.
You'd have to leave the country. I mean, it's the FDA is not approving this, so if you're going to put up a clinic that has this, you're gonna have issues with the FDA. So they're probably doing it. Yeah.
What do you?
I mean, like in theory, it's a great idea, and I could agree with Dr. T completely that I could see it being beneficial for people, right? Like infusions are just kind of, for lack of a better term, a main line to get what you need in a faster format. But I think that I get nervous when I see cannabis companies go so far into an actual medicinal product that you're confident enough that people can shoot it into their veins. And I haven't been inside their facility. I'm sure it's wonderful. I'm sure you guys have brilliant brains behind whatever you're doing, but I don't understand how nobody in that brilliant brain line was like, FDA's not going to like this shit. Like, where was the forethought when you're introducing an injectable product?
Yeah, I feel you. I was just, full transparency. I was part of a company back in the early, maybe like 2003, 2004, that we had a SFDA permit in China to create a CBD drug to treat breast cancer. Using hemp-derived CBD from China to create an intravenous drug. So, like, I'm not surprised at this, but I find it interesting how this. I find it very interesting. What do you think, Dr. Mark? I can't wait to hear what you got to say about this.
Well, I hate needles, and I don't know anybody who likes getting treated with needles. I mean, I have to get blood work done because I'm old. I have to get CAT scans done because I have an aneurysm. I mean, you don't want to stick needles in unless you need to stick needles in. If you can get CBD or cannabinoids through some conventional means without using a needle, please do so. Now, again, does that not mean that there could be some therapeutic use for an injectable? That needs to go through clinical trials. That needs to, you're crossing to me into that medical domain as soon as you talk about needles and clinics. I just don't think that that's a recreational kind of use of it. Could it be useful? Yeah, but I think you'd want to understand the correct dose. If you're taking like a CBD tincture or you're taking some kind of oral delivered CBD where you may not be completely bioavailable versus mainlining it where now you're not only bioavailable, but you're in the arteries. I mean, it might be a completely different dose regime. And so you'd want to have clinical data to support what is the active dose. And could it be useful? Absolutely. But I think that you'd want to have safety studies to guide the administration through intravenous use. I don't think that data exists. And I think for that reason alone, the FDA would shut these people down.
Sounds like this stuff could possibly also be coming to a harm reduction clinic near you. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see like if GW pushes back on this at all, because, CBD is the active ingredient of their $1 billion.
And they have and they have drug preclusion. They have drug preclusion. They can close these guys down in a heartbeat.
I'm not sure how far that could go in terms of enforcing it, but I would think that the FDA could basically sit down on anyone who's trying to inject any cannabinoid, let alone CBD or THC or whatever. I hate fucking needles. Who likes needles? Holy shit.
Drug addicts like needles, Dr. Mark. Drug addicts do.
Well, remember, only users lose drugs.
I see what you did there. You have any final thoughts on this, Jesse, before we close out?
I just think it's interesting. I mean, in a clinical situation for the right patient, it sounds like a great thing.
I mean, I think it could be good, like if like you like all of a sudden like were shot or like you broke your leg and are in crazy pain and you're in the hospital and they put you onto a CBD, IV or something. That possibly could, be good and help with pain management, but I don't know for a lot of these other uses, and I'm definitely not buying it as a dietary supplement. They didn't say there was any THCV in there, but nonetheless, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution and Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here, and thank you to our correspondents correspondents for being absolutely amazing today. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners, Anthony out there in the metaverse holding it down. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show. And we're off.